Hey ya, this is Sydney with Let's Get Through It Astrology. I'm here to take you through the astrological weather day by day for a bit of play-by-play. My intention is to give you a little bit of a vibe check so that you can show up on planet Earth as your very best self. I'm recording this from beautiful and sunny Oakland, California, so note that all of the times mentioned in this podcast are in Pacific Standard Time, so you'll want to adjust for wherever you are in the world. Okay, let's get through it. Hey, this is Sydney, and we're talking about January 14th through the 20th, 2026 for Let's Get Through It Astrology. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we got going on this week, and it's a lot. I think this is going to be a really intense rock and rollin' week, and then we'll go through the day by day. If you're taking in this content in the long format on YouTube or podcast, I really hope you'll give me a like and subscribe. And if you would prefer this as a day-by-day sort of situation, you can visit me on Instagram, TikTok, and also my Facebook. Okay, there's a lot going on. I got a pretty presentation for you. It's how I organized my thoughts. So let's do it. So key transits for the week, we have a lot. You'll see that this list is absolutely bonkers. We have Mercury in Capricorn opposite retrograde Jupiter in Cancer at 19 degrees on January 14th. Venus in Capricorn sextile Saturn in Pisces at 27 degrees January 14th. Venus trine retrograde Uranus in Taurus at 27 degrees on the 15th. Mercury in Capricorn square Chiron in Aries at 22 degrees on the 15th. Venus in Capricorn sextile Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees, that's anaretic, at the 17th. Sun in Capricorn sextile Saturn in Pisces at 29 degrees, also anaretic. We have to remember that's the 0 and the 29th degrees on the 17th. Also on the 17th, we'll have Venus doing a vibe change and going into Aquarius. The Sun in Capricorn will trine retrograde Uranus in Taurus at 27 degrees on the 17th as well. And will conjunct Mars in Capricorn at 26 degrees on the 17th. And on the 18th, we will have a new moon in Capricorn at 28 degrees. Mercury in Capricorn sextile Saturn in Pisces at 27 degrees on the 18th. Mercury trine retrograde Uranus at 27 degrees on the 18th. Sun sextile Neptune at 29 degrees on the 19th. Sun's ingress into Aquarius on the 19th. Venus conjunct Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees on the 19th. Saturn sextile retrograde Uranus at 27 degrees on the 19th. Also on the 19th, we have Mars trine retrograde Uranus at 27 degrees. We also have Mars sextile Saturn at 27 degrees on the 19th. We'll also have Mercury sextile Neptune at 29 degrees. That's also anaretic. And then Mercury's ingress into Aquarius on the 20th. So as you can see, we have some of our major players really making these aspects. It's a lot going on. It's a bit louder than I would potentially like to see, especially considering the last 2 weeks of events that have happened with, I'm in America, I'm actually in California, watching all of the events take place in terms of the Gestapo coming and doing its big, messy, horrible, horrific business to the citizens of America. And I do feel like with all of the big planets really changing signs, we're in this new shifting space. We cannot go back to the past. And I think one of the things that we need to remember is that whenever we are expressing some sort of nostalgia for years past, it's just that we didn't see these things out in the open like we do now. And do we really want to go back to times that all they would do is facilitate where we are now? So that's a bit of a mental or emotional process or processing that we need to go through to figure out, like, hey, well, yearning for the past is not good enough. Instead, we need to build a future. And in fact, the future is now and the future is here. And very soon, as we have Saturn and Neptune entering Aries in February, we really cannot go back. So we have to start working together and building our communities and building infrastructure amongst our communities in order to take care of each other. That was a bit soapboxy, but I think a bit necessary, especially as we are going to kind of get put through the ringer, I think, for this week. Okay. So let's go into Wednesday, January 14th. Wednesday is Mercury days. Mercury days, communication, mental processing, verbal sparring. We do have Mercury and Mars very close to each other. I think that the words can be a bit contentious and definitely spicy. And we're trying to, speak our will into some sort of reality. There's a lot about needing to be quick on our feet, especially, cognitively. This is a time where potentially we're making some sort of negotiations, especially because we have Mercury and Mars with this sextile to Saturn. The biggest aspects of the day is the moon is out of bounds in Sagittarius. And so, this is a really otherworldly yearning for freedom to go out and to adventure and to traverse the unknown. We do have Mercury opposite retrograde Jupiter on this day, that will aspect today. And so I think the caution here is that we want to try not to be bombastic in how we are choosing to communicate. There is a potential here to really go too far in trying to make the point. This is inside of relationships, negotiations, and because we have Mercury conjunct Mars, or very close to the perfect conjunction of Mars, we know that these things could be a bit overwhelmingly contentious at this time, and we know what's going on in this world. People are yelling from the rooftops to be respected and to hold people's own, autonomy, and it's not happening. All of these things are also happening very close to the sun, and so they are combust. So a lot of these things could be happening behind the scenes. We're not necessarily very aware of these things happening out in the open, these sorts of negotiations at this time, but I do think that they will make themselves apparent later on. Today, we also have Venus sextile Saturn, and this also speaks to me like negotiations. And there is a really interesting reception. There's a mutual reception happening here where there's an opportunity to make some sort of agreement, and also getting to a place of hopefully feeling a little bit secure or more secure in your relationships. Maybe this is you have the sort of conversation that allows you to feel more settled inside of your partnerships and alliances. All that to say, though, is that, you know, all of these things are also trining retrograde Uranus, right? This is an ongoing for the next few days. Mercury, Mars, and the Sun and Venus are all going to make this trine to Uranus, saying there's a sudden shift that is going to happen, not necessarily contentious, but there is a fundamental change to how we potentially go after our own ambitions, how we are trying to set some sort of boundary, how we're trying to set our goals. And with the new moon coming, we know that something's finishing up here as well. Going into Thursday, January 15th, Thursday is Jupiter days. Jupiter is retrograding Cancer. I think Jupiter in Cancer as a transit has definitely been this expansion of what homeland feels like. And it has not been going very well, in terms of aggressively going after securing what we potentially think is homeland, or what some folks in our legislation and Gestapo, honestly, are saying this is our land, right? They're trying to go into other countries and taking the land for themselves or ourselves. We can't I can't like divorce myself from America. I'm American. I was born here. And so my government is really going out of its way to be very aggressive towards other territories. This also speaks to an internal sense of emotional security that is trying to expand within us. And it's frankly mm, not going as well as it should be. That's what I think. The biggest aspects of the day is that we do have the moon out of bounds. Still, it's pretty far out of bounds. And so we still have our emotional reactions are potentially out of pocket, too much, right? So we need to keep a level head. We have Venus trining retrograde Uranus today. That is going to happen at the 27th degree. And so there is potentially a rapid, sudden change around our sense of security. This could be a financial transit, how we are trying to do finances, values, relationships can undergo a change at this time. Themes around how we are in union with other people. There is a shift, right? Uranus is sudden change, shock, the shock and awe. There's a revolution here with Uranus being a revolutionary planet. There could be something coming up here as well. In the ways that we're being asked to shift how we do relationship and how we show up, I think it is good to do that. Try to let it go, because in a few days' time, Venus is going to make her big move in having a new cycle with Pluto, which is a deeper systemic change around how we do Venus things: beauty, love, romance, attraction, relationships, money. Big transit of the day, too, is Mercury square Chiron. How we are communicating can take on a more sensitive tone. Potentially, we're feeling attacked in some sort of way around how we're claiming our own authority. And we have to remember that Mercury is still within this opposition to Jupiter, which is saying too much overboard. And this essentially is creating this T squares, wanting to take some sort of action, potentially out of hurt. Yeah, out of hurt. And we need to remember, we'll think about the empty leg of what would make the Grand Cross would be Libra. Seeing all sides of the story, of the picture, trying to be diplomatic, trying to weigh things out and find a more harmonious and balanced way of being. So today, let's try to let cooler heads prevail. And that might be really hard because we're feeling a lot. We're feeling fired up, moon in Sagittarius, really wanting to take off, be free, to do what it wants to do. So we're going to need to be pretty careful around the things that we're being asked to shift around with the trine of all of these planets, all these Capricornian planets to Uranus. It's saying something's changing. Something is being facilitated and changing here. Friday, January 16th, is Venus's day. Venus is at an anaretic degree today. Moon is still out of bounds. Venus days are the days that we should be entertaining pleasure and entertainment and beauty and relationship, finances, things like that. Venus is getting very, very close to Pluto at this time. She is anoretic. She's finishing up her time in Capricorn. It really gives boss babe vibes, really holding it down in relationships, setting good boundaries, trying to be an authority. And finishing up this place here before she goes into a sign that says things around liberation and freedom and originality, being possibly even more outspoken, things like that. We're going to have Moon square Neptune today, which can create a sense of emotional confusion. We don't really know which way is up. We could be feeling like there is something pulling the wool over our eyes. We're not understanding everything that we need to be understanding. The moon is going to enter Capricorn very early in the morning, and so we get into this space, this emotional space that says, okay, what do I want to achieve? What are my goals here? Am I feeling respected? A moon in Capricorn says, fuck it, I'll do it. We're also nearing this phase of the moon coming close to the sun because we do have a new moon coming up. So we could be feeling pretty tired and lethargic. We don't have a lot of aspects today. And so in all of the ways that we could be feeling like, I got to get something done, I'm potentially feeling pretty hurt, I got to wrap up some sort of Venus story here, we don't have a lot of juice to make it happen. The nice thing is that Moon is aspecting the nodes, facilitating our growth, and also ways of potentially releasing past hurts or criticisms that we have had. I think today is a good day to really think about what our goals are, what we do want to achieve, but not necessarily to make any big moves on this day. Saturday, January 17th, is Saturn's day. Saturn is the ruler of all of these planets in Capricorn and Aquarius. And it's very, very close to Neptune, right? We know that they're going to make a conjunction in Aries in February, but Saturn is now dealing with dream and vision. It's being asked to restructure. It's also making dreams a reality. And so when I think about that with Saturn days, I would love for us to take the opportunity to think about what systems and structures we want to create for ourselves in our own lives and in our communities. How do we incorporate a bigger dream that involves us taking care of everybody around us? The moon is definitely still out of bounds and getting fired up because it's getting closer and closer to Mars. It is co-present with Mercury. We have the ability to communicate. We're potentially communicating in pretty spicy ways. I think we need to be careful here around how we are choosing to communicate our hurts, our wounds, how we're feeling. Today we have Venus sextile Neptune, and that is going to happen very early in the morning at 12:33 a.m. This is the opportunity to dream, to engage in pleasure. There's a spiritual component to it. It feels like a moment where we can sit and write poetry, wear the beautiful perfume. There's a nice dreamy aspect of that. There's also a seriousness to it. These signs, Capricorn and Pisces, aren't necessarily known for their great joy, right? So there could be some solemnity here. Sun is going to sextile Saturn, and that is going to happen also very early in the morning, 2:41 a.m. at 27 degrees. And this is, we can go forward with the goals that we're setting. I still think we're feeling pretty tired because of the balsamic moon. The moon is entering the range of getting close to the sun. It's waning. It's about to be new. It's very dark. We're feeling tired. Let's take this time to try to dream. I think Neptune being in play with all of these Capricorn planets is saying, hey, what is the dream? What is the vision? What are you willing to do? What actions are you willing to take? How are you willing to shift your sense of identity and purpose? What goals do you hold here? What words are you expressing here? We are going to get, the Venus is going to be entering Aquarius at 4:43 a.m. So we're going to get a vibe shift, still Saturn ruled. But I now think that whenever I think of Venus in Aquarius, I always think of the love of new systems and technology and group, being a part of community, right? Being a part of a tribe. It's a very revolutionary sort of Venus. It can also be what is that word? A bit extremist. So we need to be a little bit careful about that. But in the background of this Venus ingress into Aquarius, we know that she's wrapping up her cycle, coming to Pluto. This Venus in Aquarius ingress is answering to Saturn and Neptune, very close, pretty much conjunct, new structures and visions. And I think, okay, as Venus changes signs, how do I be a part of community? How do I help create systems that allow all of us to feel connected and taken care of? Today, we also have Sun trine Uranus, and that's going to be at 8:58 a.m. Really, a lot of the action, the big action, is happening very early in the morning, but these energies hold, right? So Sun trine Uranus, new ideas. And this is security based, right? This is reality based. This is having to do with the things that you can touch, the earth, money, things, right? Because this trine is happening in earth. We know that it has to do with actual things, or what we perceive to be actual things. I think that this particular trine has to do with finances. Capricorn is a sign of like financial institutions, and Taurus is a sign that has to do with money. So I think that there's something here that could be coming up for us, and how we, like, maybe we have a new idea about how we want to arrange our finances. Maybe we need to, because we have been surprised by something, say, okay, I need to change how I am spending my money, where my money is being held, what I'm investing in, that kind of thing. Later on in the evening, we are going to get an opposition from the moon to Jupiter. So there could be more bigger feelings. And this could be feelings of a bit of depression, or, wanting to take some sort of action to deal with our emotions here. It is very close to squaring Chiron, the moon is. And so we know that there could be a lot of sensitivity coming up at this time, not feeling super great, and potentially having some emotional outbursts that are not very healthy for the situation. And then we'll have Mercury conjunct Mars at 11:40 p.m. And this is going to happen at 26 Capricorn. And it's fighting words, right? It is being lightning quick on our feet with what we're saying. I do think that we need to be careful with how and where we're aiming our words, especially as we're trying to assert or express our own ambitions, or our own authority, our goals, all of those things. On Sunday, January 18th, we're going to get into the new moon in Capricorn. The big player of this week, right, is Capricorn energy, because we have this stellium that is happening here. We have Mars, Mercury, the Sun, and the Moon all in Capricorn. And new moons in Capricorn are times where we go, okay, what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve? What are we doing? What hill do we have to climb? Where are we going? It's co-present. This new moon is co-present with Mercury and Mars, which I also think is going to be, in terms of new starts, a bit spicy and contentious. Yeah. There's a lot of energy here. We have Venus also close as well, with the new moon. There's just such an overwhelming amount of energy in this lunation that has to do with Saturn, because all of these planets, Mars, Mercury, Sun, Moon, Venus, and Pluto, are all ruled by Saturn conjunct Neptune. New ways of creating our reality, structures dissolving, slipping away, and new foundations being created based off of whatever dreams. What are we trying to create here that is new, that has more vision? I think we should invite ourselves to dream big, and also to know that in order for new structures to be created, a lot of things need to erode. With Saturn conjuncting Neptune in this lunation, it's very, very close, right? We know that this is already happening. We're watching full institutions, things that we thought would always be there, literally falling away, slipping away, dripping away. Because this new moon also has to do with finances, it can do with banking and things like that. I'm curious to see what happens in terms of money and financial institutions at this time. This new moon is also trine Uranus in Taurus, retrograde Uranus. And so we know that there's some new, fresh ideas, liberating ideas. Uranus talks about liberation and it talks about freedom. It seeks to liberate us from things that we do not need anymore in our life. What is very, very interesting about this particular lunation, I'm going to go forward into the Sydni chart, which is USA's birth chart for the new moon, is that it's conjunct our Pluto in the second house of finances. So again, I think there's big news, new news here that has to do with finances. The second house is the treasury, banks, financial institutions, economic trade. The new moon is ruled by Saturn that's conjunct Neptune, and it's about to conjunct the IC, the fourth house cusp of USA's chart, literally changing our foundations. So whatever this new moon is changing the foundations of this country. It's a part of this change. We cannot go back. What's interesting about this particular new moon with the Sydni chart, as I was digging around, is very interested in things, is that there is a echo or I would say an echo to a lunation, a new moon in Capricorn on January 16th, 1942, which happened very, very close to the Pluto in the Sydni chart. And Uranus was also retrograde in Taurus at 26 degrees. So we have this echo of things that was happening. And so I looked at what was going on in the world. And this is when the US, was really transferring our money into war machines, into weapons, into preparing for war. It's just something to keep in mind as we watch maybe a transfer of wealth going into a place. And we already know that there is already been a transfer of wealth happening in general from the people to the oligarchs, but also this transfer of finances that would hold up the institutions of our government are now literally being poured into war. And so it was just an interesting thing to notice. It's not great. The other interesting thing about the chart that was happening in 1942 is that the nodes were reversed. They were in the same signs of Virgo and Pisces, but that particular chart and lunation had the north node in Virgo and the south node in Pisces. It was just going back in time, trying to figure out what's going on. We're also in a fourth house perfection month, which I think continues to talk about the erosion of fourth house matters. Oh my gosh. Everything having to do with homeland, what we were built on, which is war, honestly. But here we go. So just some things to keep in mind. But on this new moon in Capricorn, what new seeds are you trying to plant in terms of achievement and your goals? Monday, January 19th is the moon's day. We have the moon in Aquarius. We have a need to be with community building, to maybe detach a little bit. We were feeling a lot. We were potentially doing a lot. We were thinking about our goals and our objectives. And now we're kind of trying to get away from that a little bit. We have a lot going on this day. It's just a tremendous amount of things going on in this day, which I think means that there are larger things going on. We're going to enter Aquarius season today, but right before that at 1:54 p.m., we are going to get the Sun sextile Neptune, new dreams, right? Dreams become something that we understand more and we want to go and do. This is a waning sextile. It is in last quarter sextile, I think it's called. It's like the dissemination of ideas. We're about to be done with this so we can start a new cycle. And certainly the Sun in a few months' time is going to meet up with Neptune. There could be a dreaminess in the air at this time, and really an awareness of what our vision and our dreams can be. Sun goes into Aquarius at 5:44 p.m. The visionary, the enigmatic person, the different person. We're dealing with themes that have to do with different, original, eccentric community. So happy birthday, Aquarius. What a year it's going to be. One of the bigger stories for today is that we have Venus conjunct Pluto, and this means a new cycle is going to begin. I went back into time and a little bit forward as well to talk about, the Venus-Pluto conjunctions, which Venus, the planet of pleasure, of money, of love, relationship, Venus joins things together, right? And then we have Pluto, which is about transformation, regeneration, can be about deep underground things, power and control dynamics. We have this new cycle that is going to begin, and it happens every 2 years. Venus and Pluto will meet. Even though what's interesting, and I think it's particularly interesting for this cycle, is that we had 2 other meetings of Pluto and Venus together in Aquarius at 0 degrees in 2024. We had it on the 7th of December, 2024, and also February 17th, 2024 at 0 Aquarius. So what were we trying to begin here in terms of these themes? Maybe radically changing how we love. There is a deeper, more powerful shift in how we do Venusian things that started then and did a little bit. And now we have this other opportunity now. And I think it's almost as if we had one go, we tried again, and now here's this one. But we need to think about love. We need to think what we love and what we value, how we do relationship, and think about where this is in your house that Aquarius is. So for me, Aquarius at that 3-degree range is in the 5th house of creativity for me. So there's a new cycle, some sort of shift and change has happened. And now I'm going to renew and go forward through creativity as, Venus goes through. But I'm definitely thinking about creativity and the arts. I'm an artist also. And so I'm wondering what new cycle will change for me, because I'm also keeping into mind what happened those previous years, especially in 2024. Saturn is going to sextile retrograde Uranus. This is the last exact hit until 2038. And so as Saturn comes and has this friendly aspect to Uranus, this is it has the opportunity here. And Uranus is saying, hey, Saturn, let's shift here. You have the opportunity to make some changes here around how you do structure, how you do your systems, how you do discipline. This can be some change that has to do with authority figures, has to do with business. So there could be a shift around business structures at this time. There's so much happening with the earth in our system right now with all of the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are still in Capricorn. They're making this aspect to Saturn and Neptune. So they're going, okay, we're shifting and changing. We're getting really serious about these things. We're holding it down here. We have this vision. And at the same time, there's this trine from the Capricornian planets to Uranus going, okay, shift, new ideas, new ways of doing this, right? And then we have Saturn also coming into this sextile with Uranus. It's like, okay, but how I do all of this, how I hold myself in authority, the structures, my boundaries, something's changing here. And so it feels there's just so much change happening right now. And today is definitely one of those kind of rock and rolly days. We don't have a lot of aspects for the moon, though. So what I think is maybe as these things are happening, we don't necessarily feel motivated to do a whole bunch of shifting. To me, it feels like I'm watching everything around me shift. I'm watching the table get set and reset, and I'm trying to watch with a mostly detached way of interacting with my landscape. So allow that to happen around you. Show up where is needed. Try not to be too verbally aggressive. We still have Mercury, Mars, very close to each other. And try not to make any of these sorts of moves undercover that conjunction to the sun, really saying these things are happening away from us. So there's also something here that these big changes are not quite being made apparent to us. It almost feels like an earthquake, right? But it's like, did I feel that? Was that really an earthquake? And then you go outside later and you see a giant crack in the foundation. So something isn't apparent now, but things are rapidly changing and shifting in ways that we do not get to go back to the before times of these changes. So hold fast. Oh my goodness. So we are now in Tuesday, January 20th. Tuesday is Mars's day. Mars is now the only planet left in Capricorn. Really enjoys being in Capricorn, though. This is the sign of his exaltation. He is also in his own bound. He is feeling himself. That's my perception of that Mars in Capricorn. It's like, I'm going to go do this and that. I am ambitious. I know what I'm going to go and do. I know what I'm trying to get done. So, go get it done. We're going to have some maybe free-floating anxiety when we're waking up. And then we're able to craft and tell a story. We're able to speak on what we're trying to create and speak into existence for us. Mercury sextile Neptune is very intellectually creative, really getting to go into these almost psychic realms and to turn that into some sort of story or thought or idea. Be a dreaminess to how we're communicating. I don't necessarily know if whatever we're saying at this time sticks, but it is a good time to vision board. At 8:41 a.m., we're going to get Mercury ingressing into Aquarius. I personally feel like Mercury loves being in Aquarius because it's like radical thought, new technology. Let me use new technologies in order to communicate all of these ideas I have. This is like flying cars. This is also when we have Mercury is now, it has been very close to the sun, but we know that there is going to be a meetup very soon, not during this podcast, but very soon, tomorrow, I believe. So we know that these thoughts, there's some brilliance to it, right? There's almost Cazimi on this day. We're getting very close to that Cazimi phase on this day. So what that means to me is that we're cooking on all cylinders with what we're thinking. We're having some potentially really brilliant ideas.
Moon sextile Chiron, 9:20 a.m. This, there's a wisdom here facilitating some sort of healing. It's more in the head, though. It's not necessarily fully in the heart. Maybe it's understanding why we were reacting the way we were, how we were feeling the way we are, and now we can offer that sort of wisdom to the people around us, especially with the moon being in Aquarius, needing to be a part of community, wanting to connect with the larger group and having this understanding of, yeah, I hold this too, so let's all work together. We are going to get a vibe shift in the evening, 10:49 p.m. The moon is going to enter Pisces, and this is a more psychic moon. It's definitely more intuitive, emotional, can be a little bit depressed. This is a moon that a moon in Pisces is so capable of osmosis, of picking up all of the energies in the room. And so a Pisces moon always needs to keep in mind what the boundaries are and have good emotional boundaries, because otherwise they'll just be pulled like in the ocean in a million different directions and not know which way to go. So we could be feeling a bit emotionally untethered and unmoored, right? Really psychically and intuitively aware of everything that is happening around us. We need to be careful when moon enters Pisces to not engage too deeply in the overwhelm. When we have moon entering Pisces, it's going to be immediately starting a sign-based trine to Jupiter, which really facilitates it too much, more. So we need to be careful in engaging with any sort of addictions that we have. And hopefully that sign-based trine to Jupiter is going to be a bit more healing and expansive, emotionally expansive in healthy ways. But now on Tuesday, we're fully in Aquarius season. We have a lot of planets in Aquarius. This is really, the vibe shift is about tribe and community and also freedom. It's a revolutionary sign. So I think there's a lot with all of the vibe shift into Aquarius and just a little bit in with Mars and Capricorn. We still have so much being ruled by Saturn conjunct Neptune in Pisces that is finishing up and eroding old structures that don't need to exist anymore and then starting a new cycle. And so I think as we have this week go on, we're very aware of what is ending and what is trying to begin, but we don't get to engage with actual beginnings yet. Even though we did have this new moon, we planted seeds, but we're not quite there yet. So feel the feelings as we get into the evening, and I will see you tomorrow.
Hey, thank you for listening to today's Astro Weather with me. I'm Sydney. As a reminder, I'm always open to seeing both new and my beloved returning clients. My website is ddastrology.com. That is D as in dog, astrology.com to check me out and just click the email buttons in order to schedule with me. If you're into a more conversational feel with your podcast and content, I have a podcast called BS Astrology with my fellow Mercurial Mommy Bender, and we put out episodes every Sunday for the week. Just search BS Astrology on YouTube or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast, including Spotify, Audible, and more. Have a good day.